Hello, hello, it's Pattyjo. Hi, how are you? It is so super hot here today. Ridiculous hot. I work tonight, so lights down. Hopefully to cool the place off a bit. Okay, moving on with some more witness response or victim responses. I think I've lined it up with where we left off.
Hello, my name is Sasha Catalan. I was 17 years old when the WAUKESHA parade incident occurred. I was in my last year of high school, thinking it was going to be the best senior year ever. Although I pushed through and made it to the end, it definitely was not easy for me or for any of us of that. After that, one night that changed our lives. I was in the WAUKESHA South marching band as a clarinet player. How am I doing now? That's really hard to answer because some days I get scared to leave my house, especially now since the holidays are coming around. Even when it's the simplest holidays, my mind always finds a way to go back to that parade incident. Since that day, I don't really know how to act on many events, whether good or bad. What I mean by this is that I don't really know how to show my emotions as much anymore. Before, I used to open up and could easily be read as a book, but now even my mom wonders what goes through my head, and honestly I wish she knew. But I know that if I were to tell her, she'd be worried for me, which is the last thing that I want. Sometimes I think of what if situations since that day, that if I were to take the place of one of those people who have passed, if it would have happened better. Although I am grateful to have received a chance to continue and to make something out of my life for the better, I get haunted by these thoughts. I used to never think this way, which scares me the most. Not sure whether to live actively and freely, like as if nothing ever happened, or to watch my back on the slightest things. At school, I sort of didn't want to receive any help from those who offered. Not even my boyfriend, which hurt the most. Everyone hated me saying struggle to pick up and carry my books and binders, even carrying my backpack just over a shoulder. I wanted to continue as normally as I could back at school, but that was never gonna happen. I've never felt so weak like that before in my life. I felt empty and I cried. It was hard to carry those books and everything, so I gave in and let those, including my boyfriend, help me out. Even the basics are hard to do, such as write. Either my hand shakes a little or I would have to use a clipboard for support. Even now, then, my shoulder would pop along with my elbow if I were to simply stretch. I have to relearn how to play my favorite sports, especially soccer, when it came to kicking the ball, since I was injured on my right side of the body. I tried to learn to be a lefty, but it was hard, so I decided to heal and to not give up even with the pain of kicking with my right. To this day, it's hard to sleep because sometimes I do dream of that incident. I wake up sweating from my head with a slight fever. I instantly wake up and try to calm myself down as my heart starts to race. I have to hug something instantly to feel that I am not alone and that I am safe, such as stuffed animal, sweater, or blanket. My family has been even more worrisome and strict to me, even though I am an adult now. They instantly want to know everything I want to do. We have trust, but since the parade, my mom has been non-stop talking about me possibly getting into a car crash, or her never finding me, or something because I didn't aware her of a last-minute plan to go eat or to simply go to a store. I understand I never want her to worry, but at the same time, she shouldn't have to be thinking of such situations. I want to pursue what makes me happy and to not have limits on myself or to feel not as confident because my mom would say that I'm better off with this since I'm safer. My life has not been easy, and I've accepted that it won't be as normal as before. All of this, I still struggle to this day. I just keep moving forward, but I don't know when the nightmares will go away, when I will be completely healed physically and emotionally, having those reenactments of seeing my friends in the band scatter or those on the floor. I just wish that day never happened. Definitely not the adulthood I thought I would be having now, considering I do not know what to go in for college. This is due to me having now an interest in the medical field or law school because of the parade tragedy and wanting to have justice served for everyone in this community. This is how I am to this day. Definitely not the same Sasha as I once was before. I may be stuck finding myself for a period of time, but I am trying my best to not let the incident that affected us all to get the best of me and define who I am and to define who we all are. Thank you.
And I have a statement from Sasha's mother to read, and then I have 3 more statements from members of the WAUKESHA South Band in this group, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And the next one after this is the photos. Judge Doro, I want to express in this letter my feelings since the day of the accident, so to speak. My daughter at that time was a student at South High School and a member of the band, in which some members, including her, were struck by the truck causing injuries. Since that day, I cannot get out of my head all of the screams of pain, anguish, and terror that were heard along that long street with no end in sight. Young children, elderly people, and relatives running to protect themselves. I had mixed feelings, and even worse, my daughter was in the hospital with a lost look and without understanding what had happened. There have been months of uncertainty, of sleepless nights, nervous breakdowns, and foolish thoughts. What hurts me the most is seeing how my daughter has completely changed. From being a girl who wanted so many things for her future to see her now so quiet, so distant, and still so stunned with many questions and so many others. The hardest thing to hear is that she would have preferred to give her life for that of some other person who lost their life. For me as a mother, it is very difficult to be able to tell her that everything will be fine when at the time I was not behind her to protect her from everything that happened. I know that many will say overcome it already, but nobody knows what it's like trying to stand on your feet when your world has no floor. I hope justice is done, and I am thankful to each and every one of you who has not left us alone. Policemen, doctors, prosecutors, angels, and all of those people who I could not name who were and are still here to support us. This is just the beginning for many of us, and it will be a long road, but I am sure of one thing, and that is that we will be able to get back up. Thank you very much. WAUKESHA, let's hug very tight because our children need us. Mother of Victim I. And this next one, they sent us some photos this morning. Are you ready for them? Thank you, Judge Doro, for your patience through this trial. Thank you to the entire prosecution team for being so well prepared for this case. And lastly, thank you to Victim Witness Assistance for looking out for all of us. My name is Donald Teagues, and I am the father of victim Q, or...
I'm just going to stop this. Okay, so this is... I'm only a nurse by having taken the courses and graduated. I never took my NCLEX, never worked as a nurse. I have worked inside of hospitals. I have dealt with ICUs. This is an ICU room, an intensive care unit room. They are almost, I think they're always single rooms with one-to-one nurses. And what that means is the nurse for the night gets one patient. If they do get more than one patient, the other patient's going to be somebody who's getting better, getting ready to go to a step-down unit or to a unit that's with less supervision, because they're medically easier to handle and a little bit more stable. This does not look like a stable patient. There are a lot of things going on here. Here's some IV pumps, okay, for medications. This kind of pump would hold at least four different medications, and they would just stack one little plastic unit, and then they program them, and that's how they keep track of that. There is a monitor. This is for emergencies in case they need to provide ventilations by way of bag mask. I cannot tell, because of course, for privacy reasons probably, if the patient is on a breathing machine of some sort, which would be a ventilator, or even higher end, problems would be an oscillator. These kids would probably have been on ventilators if they needed that. These are monitoring vital signs, blood pressure, the heart rhythm, the oxygen levels, and the end titles. The end title is actually more important than oxygen. So there is a lot going on here. But imagine coming in and seeing your child in this condition.
Eric Teagues. Both of my sons, Eric and Tyson, were marching with the Waukesha South Marching Band in the 2021 Waukesha Christmas Parade. Eric was a junior and Tyson was a freshman. They were there to play Christmas music for the people and start off the holiday season. That came to a quick end when you, Darrell E. Brooks Jr., drove through the parade killing people, injuring people, and ruining what was supposed to be a beautiful event. And we haven't been told when to do the photos, so Christy, if you can use your judgment, thank you. Darrell Brooks, you hit and ran over Eric along with some of his bandmates. Tyson, his younger brother, was just feet away from Eric when you hit and ran him over. Tyson witnessed his brother getting hit and ran over along with other bandmates. Tyson never left his brother's side during this incident. He even took off his jacket to help keep his brother warm while he laid in the middle of the street. He then had to call his mother and try to explain what had happened. As he stood next to his brother, he saw blood coming out of his ear, nose, and mouth, and his leg that was pointing backwards. He would just keep telling Eric he will be fine and that Mom was on her way. He stayed with him until Eric was taken by ambulance to the hospital. Starting that night, Tyson had nightmares and had them for a week. He would wake up screaming and crying. And what made this even worse is he couldn't go to see his brother in the hospital, and my wife and I could not be there for Tyson the first few nights because we were with his brother in the ICU at Children's Hospital. My daughter, who wasn't at the parade but went with her mother to the parade after Tyson called. She stayed with Tyson at the scene and at home when we couldn't be there. She needed to see a psychiatrist to help her deal with what she saw on the streets that day and seeing her brother lying there on the ground not knowing if he would live. She had to be in outpatient care for 2 weeks to help her through what she saw.
Wow.
Eric was an aspiring baseball player for the Waukesha South baseball team and a select baseball player for Styx Academy. He was making his final push to get better and wanting to be scouted by colleges to play in college at an elite level.
Oh, God.
You took that away from him that November day.
Oh.
He spent 9 days in the hospital. 3 of those were in ICU. Eric suffered from a skull fracture, a major concussion, a C4 fracture, right shoulder fracture, 4 broken ribs, a partially collapsed lung, T6 through T11 fractures, and a left femur fracture that required surgery. He is lucky to be alive. The C4 fracture could have killed him. The femur fracture could have killed him, or the broken ribs along with the lung collapse could have killed him. His time in the hospital was very hard, dealing with nonstop pain from you hitting him and running over him like he was a speed bump. He had to lay flat for 4 days and wear a C-collar for 7 days because of the C4 fracture. He had a chest tube to drain the blood off of his lung so he could breathe.
Okay, so he had a hemothorax. The C4 fracture, you have 7 cervical spines, and the C4 would be the 4th one down. At that level, it affects breathing, everything, like being able to control your bladder and your bowels, all kinds of things.
He had to undergo surgery to repair his severely fractured femur. On top of all of that, he was dealing with a severe concussion. He could not have any lights on or loud noises. He would have events of uncontrolled vomiting and would spike fevers. When he was finally able to leave the hospital, it was in a wheelchair, and he was in that wheelchair for over a month. We had to have a wheelchair ramp built for when we came home. Without the ramp, it would have been very hard to get him in and out of the house. My wife had to take off a month of unpaid leave from work. I had to take off 3 months from work to take care of him and get him to multiple doctor appointments a week. Darrell Brooks, you stated during this whole trial that you are a man, a God-loving man. You are not. A real man would have stopped when they saw they made a mistake. A real man would have admitted the wrong and would not have put all these families through this pain. A man of God would have stopped, admitted to his wrongs, and asked for forgiveness. You sat there showing no emotions for what you did and pretend that reading the Bible was going to help you. But you, Darrell Brooks, are pure evil that is not fooling anyone. You don't know God, but you better start learning, because where you are going, you're going to need to start praying a lot. You don't deserve to see the light of day ever again. You should never be able to see your children again. It's too bad this state doesn't have the death penalty, because you would be put to the front of the line. I hope you rot in hell, have a miserable existence in prison, and that someone teaches you a true lesson in asking for forgiveness. The next statement is from victim H. It's been nearly a year since the WAUKESHA parade incident, and I know my friends, family, and myself still remember it vividly. Personally, I have an injury that could affect me the rest of my life. Doing normal things like carrying groceries or even my school supplies to classes have proven to be more of a challenge compared to what it used to be. And some mornings I'm not even able to lift my arm past my shoulder. It's hard, but I'm living through it because I refused a long time ago that I would have this man, someone who thought of no one and nothing past the incident, control what I can and can't do. I can't remember vividly what happened, just pain sparking up from the back of my head and my shoulder and people standing over me. It wasn't until I woke up the next day after everything and tried to stand up did I realize how much pain I was truly in, and it only got worse the following days. My progress in what I can do with my injuries over this difficult year has been positive. I've rebuilt most of my strength, but I've been told time and again from my family, friends, medical professionals, it may never be what it used to be, and to remember that this may be it.
Look at this fool. Look at this idiot right here, who thinks it's not this guy's fault. Or at least that's what he said. I don't think he thinks anything. I think he just thinks about himself. We're going to include him. Look at that. The 2 fools. Two idiots.
But that's only a possibility to me. Nothing is set in stone. Medicine is a practice because we never have all the answers. I was lucky to have family and friends who could help me physically, but nothing was permanent. All it took was a single thing to throw all progress out the window. If I wake up lying on my side, I already know that that day is going to be painful because simple things like sleeping hurt. Emotionally, the only constant support I've had is that of my friends and family. I've chosen out of my own free will not to see medical professionals for my mental state because I hold the belief that therapy is great and can do many great things for people, but what I do here and now has a bigger impact on myself. Putting a pause on my life to think about what happened to me and the people I know isn't worth it. I wake up at least twice a week to terrors of what happened, seeing and feeling the same things as that night and the days that followed. The endless possibilities of what could have happened, not just to me but others, whether I knew them or not, flood my dreams and scare me to my core. I remember my parents the day after. I had been dead asleep all night from stress and finally running out of adrenaline, to find out that they hadn't slept. My father chose to stay up in the living room where I had been sleeping to watch over me instead of recuperating himself. I may not have completely understood then because I didn't want to, but after a year of dealing with the outcome, I understand. Being who I am, I hide what I'm feeling a lot. Right after the incident, I remember friends coming up to me and seeking comfort, to which I had no problem with, but there would be triggers in what they would say that would bring me back. But I pushed it away to comfort others. Humor is the world's medicine, and like most traumatic situations in my life, I've applied humor to this now. I'm sensitive to who I'm with, but when talking, I try to think of something witty or humorous so that I can jump over the obstacle or burden of trauma, and to put it plainly, sadness. This past homecoming, my friends and I had gone to the dance, and one of my friends was driving us to eat afterwards. The place was on the far side of town, and the quickest route was through downtown. It wasn't their fault at all, but we were stopped because a group of people were crossing the road, and it was right near where I was hit, and I panicked. My vision went blurry, and I had flashbacks of the night. My friends had noticed and helped me through it, and we found a better route. I can't remember a time before having that bad of a panic attack where it's hard to breathe, and knowing the reason behind it is just another reminder I won't be the same, much like most people who were affected.
That happened to me.
During the time of the trial, I've stayed away from news on what's happening. I've overheard conversations with family members. Sometimes it's brought up within my friend groups, most of which have chosen to be understanding of my choices and move away from the topic. Mentally, this past month, I've had more terrors, not always while I'm sleeping, but when I zone out at school or at home. I never show a reaction because I choose to keep that in, but I do change in how I stand or sit, and I noticed I'm more jumpy around people after experiencing these terrors. Hearing about what happened within this case has been a stressful time for everyone in my family. I tend to not sleep as well as I normally do, even on good nights, and I find myself panicking over small things such as schoolwork more than I ever have. Thank you, Victim H. And the final statement from the band is from Victim K. At the time of the WAUKESHA holiday parade, I was your typical carefree teenager. As a 17-year-old at WAUKESHA South, I had only just begun my senior year, a time that some might argue to be the best year of high school. Sadly, that all changed in a mere instant. I was marching in the parade with the WAUKESHA South Band, playing the sousaphone, parentheses tuba, when Brooks appeared out of nowhere, plowing into me from behind. He dragged both me and my instrument upon the hood of his vehicle for what seemed like miles, before eventually running me over entirely. Luckily, I was swiftly rushed to Waukesha Memorial Hospital by an officer via squad car for emergency treatment. I was completely alone during this time, and positively terrified. The ER medical staff was utterly shocked that I had even survived such a forceful impact. I suffered multiple injuries due to the impact, including ligament damages, deep tissue contusions, and both a sprained neck and ankle. Post-evaluation, the doctors explained to me how my instrument had likely saved my life. Saved my life. Those words still echo loudly in my head. While my instrument may have helped to protect me, my life, as I knew it, was entirely destroyed by Brooks that evening. I spent several weeks on crutches, then followed that up with multiple braces. I felt completely disabled, as I was unable to walk or even move without constant pain or assistance from someone. Outside of the injuries I sustained, my entire body ached for several weeks, and I felt like one giant bruise. This lengthy loss of mobility ultimately resulted in the loss of my only employment, my part-time job. However, despite my injuries, it was the sheer horror of the events of that night, coupled with the unwanted attention after the parade, which sent me into a downward spiral of misery and depression. Everything I had experienced and continued to deal with had eventually caused me to lose all focus, so I fell behind at school. I simply gave up on my studies and school entirely after the accident. I hated all of the extra attention it brought. Consequently, I was not able to graduate on time with all of my closest friends and peers. That was one of my lowest times, which of course only added to the darkness and depression I was already trying to navigate through. Any physical injuries that my body sustained as the result of this crime do not begin to compare to the mental massacre I have been forced to battle every day since then. My dreams have been assaulted by the images of that night. Bodies were strewn everywhere. Victims were sobbing and crying in pain and fear all around me. My horrific dreams have all but forced me into a constant and chronic state of insomnia. I have been unable to enjoy any form of restful slumber in nearly a full year. I also cannot bring myself to revisit the downtown Waukesha area at all. I become completely stressed even being near the area where I was hit. This is disturbing on a very personal level. My mother is a Waukesha native born and raised. She would often reflect upon her love for this town, the events and parades, and the community as a whole. Our family used to spend so many days together in the downtown area, but not now. Now I become physically ill just considering going downtown, and it hurts to know we can no longer share those special family moments together. In addition, I now suffer from panic attacks in any crowded public settings. I cannot even enjoy a simple sporting event or concert because I have developed a hypersensitivity to screaming crowds. They send me into a complete panic, putting my head on a swivel, and always watching for danger. The PTSD and hopelessness that I continue to suffer as a result of that November day continues to be an ongoing battle, warranting decades of therapy. Mr. Brooke is sheer evil in its vilest form. He should never again know any sense of freedom. I hope that the rest of his days are haunted by the videos, images, and stories shared by each and every victim. I hope every night his dreams are teeming with visions of those 6 innocent people who perished in the wake. I want him to suffer like all of us has, every single day until he takes his very last breath. His refusal to accept any responsibility for his actions deserves no less. I would strongly urge the court to extend the firmest sentencing possible for every single guilty charge. On behalf of myself, my family, all of the victims, the dearly deceased, and all of Waukesha, please issue Brooks the maximum penalties possible. Victim K.
I identify with a lot of that. Not being able to go into public afterwards, but especially when that victim said the attention. I spent 15 years building up a reputation as an educator in EMS, writing curricula for clinical, giving best practices, teaching at the National Fire Academy for best practices in engaging students during didactic learning. All of these things I spent over a decade and a half, building that reputation. And then I'm known for a long time, and to a lot of people even still, as the paramedic that was beat up by the naked guy. That's what I was known for. After all of that work, that's what he did. And he never took responsibility. So very similar. I totally can identify with this person. I hope, the panic attacks get better. They do. I used EMDR. I hope they find something that works. That's all.
That is the end of this group.
All right, thank you. I know we had about an hour or so break, but I do think it's also important that court staff and everyone here get a lunch break as well. So we will break for an hour-ish. I'll plan to be back here at 1:15. All right, thank you, everyone. We are in recess.
Okay. So I'm going to take another break. I'm trying to learn how to macrame. That's what I'm doing down here. So I'm about 1,000% sure that I'm just tying random knots and making a huge mess out of this thing and making it totally ugly, but something to learn to do. Oh, this guy's angry and I like that. We need an angry one.
Yes, we're ready to go, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, then go ahead, please.
On November 21st, you killed my mother. And in this courtroom, I watched you run her down and her broken body slide across the concrete. This woman loved and she was loved. You ran her down like she was nothing. And since that day, you have shown no remorse. You've offered no explanation for your atrocities. It offends me that you're sitting here breathing while she is not. You are a monster. You deserve contempt and death. Sadly, with no death penalty in this state, I can only hope they lock you away someplace so deep the rats chew on your fingers at night. As for me, this will never be over until the day I'm pissing on your grave.
Wow.
I think it would be fair to say that for your crimes, even God hates you.
Mocking it.
If you could just tell me, go ahead.
Yeah, for the record, Your Honor, that was the son of victim
2.
B.
If I could first thank the court, you, Your Honor, and your staff for getting us here today. I don't know how you did. You kept us under 4 weeks, and this is all going to be wrapped up, before the first anniversary, and that means a lot. So I thank you for that. And if I could thank everybody at the prosecution table, our real-life Avengers. I mean, you guys did everything you could for us, and I'm forever grateful. Thank you. And I couldn't not thank Jen Dunn and her staff. I mean, she took all of us, supported us, made us into a family, and without them, I don't think I could have gotten through this trial. And Mr. Brooks, I hope as I read my statement, you continue to roll your eyes. I hope you continue to laugh and just show how bored and unmoved you are by all of this, because I think that's important. It's important for the world to see that evil can be a tangible, living, breathing thing. I think it's important for the world to see what human rot looks like. And to all the survivors, every time he puts his hand on that empty cavity where his heart should be, I hope you all smile, and I hope you take solace in the fact that today is our day. Today is for us. Today is so we can take our handful of dirt, throw it on his grave, and move on. Because that's what we all need, and that's what we deserve. My name is Chris Owen, and I am the plaintiff. I'm here on behalf of another plaintiff, my mother, Leanna Joy Owen. Lee Owen was a mother, a grandmother, a best friend, an apartment manager, and a dancing granny. The reason none of the witnesses saw her in this courtroom is because she was executed by a child-killing sex offender. And we are both injured parties. My whole family is an injured party. To my kids, Lee Owen was Nanny. And Nanny spoiled her grandkids every chance she got. On every birthday, she would call and sing happy birthday to their voicemail so they could hear it the first thing in the morning. She went on a tour of my son's summer camp. She danced in the same parades as my youngest daughter. She wanted my oldest daughter to use her car to learn how to drive so she could teach her like she taught me. And all of that has been ripped away. But the defendant's conscience is clear. To my dad, Lee Owen was the love of his life. They met when she was 16, and he taught her how to drive. From that point on, they stayed in each other's lives. And even though they divorced, she was still his best friend. They spent a lot of time together, and she was the only one who could get him out of the house. Now my dad has nightmares of her body flying through the air and shattering against concrete. But Mr. Brooks' conscience is clear. To my brother and I, Lee Owen was our mother. A mother who, even when she was struggling, was always there for us. She was supportive of us. She always told us how proud she was of us. Growing up, all my friends and my brother's friends knew they were welcomed at our house. When they were in trouble, having problems at home, or just had to get away, she always let them stay as long as they needed to. And for years, every time I came home from the Marine Corps, she got all those same friends together so I could see everybody and spend time with them. She was the one that made sure everyone got their Christmas lists out on time. She made the best eggnog I ever had. And she made my grandma's mac and cheese whenever we were together. She recently renewed her passport so she could visit my wife and I in Turkey and travel the world with us. She also couldn't wait to visit Machu Picchu with my brother. It was her dream trip. Out of all the places in the world, that was the one place she had to visit before she died. And now the best we can do is lay her ashes there. But Darrell Brooks' conscience is clear. And I believe him. Out of everything he said in this courtroom, I believe that is the one truth he told. I mean, how else could he make a witness look at each of his battered friends that he ran over and ask, how do you know who this is? Throughout her life, Lee Owen was a hardworking woman. That's why when she found herself on hard times, she was able to overcome them. Even though it took years, she dug herself out of a deep financial hole so she could live the life she wanted, the life she deserved. And she was in the middle of doing just that on the evening of November 21st, 2021. And I know this is corny and cliche to say, but Lee Owen wasn't 71 years old. She was 71 years young. She was one of the most active people I knew. She just didn't have it in her to sit still. She always had to be moving or doing something, and this often involved people. She was very social and loved being around those she cared about, and people loved her back. She had a knack for making you feel good about yourself without even trying, because she always found the good in people. Even when it was to her detriment, it never dissuaded her from helping people any way she could, without judgment, without demand for repayment or feeling she was owed anything. She did it because she knew it was the right thing to do, and it made her feel good. She accepted people for who they were and made people feel good about themselves. That is what the world lost, and you have the audacity to tell this court that your conscience is clear. I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks. There's not a human with a soul on this planet who could snuff that light out, who could steal Lee Owen from this world and have a clear conscience. And that is why you hear the term monster. That is why you hear the term demon. You know, I saw you that day. It was just after you ran over the Catholics. I saw you hanging out of the window, looking back with a smile of satisfaction on your face, laughing at an inside joke that at the time I didn't get, the punchline escaping me. I didn't get it when my mom didn't respond to my texts. I didn't get it when she didn't answer my phone calls. I didn't get it the first couple hours my brother spent looking for her. I didn't get it until my wife sent me a video of you running over children in the parade. That's when I got the punchline. And it hit me like your red SUV, Mr. Brooks. I saw pure, unrepentant evil in your face that day, and it disgusts me that you are allowed to exist. And I know the answer to the question that everyone keeps asking. I know why you did this. You did this simply because you were not in a cage. That is what I find mind-boggling. And how dare anyone say the system failed him? The system failed every one of us whose only mistake was to bring their families in the vicinity of Mr. Brooks. That poor excuse for a man should not have been on the streets. That is the failure, period. But enough about him, because today is not about him. It's about us and what we lost. I lost my mom, Lee Owen, and I wasn't always a good son. I could be selfish sometimes. I could be mean. But no matter how angry or standoffish I got, she would bend over backwards for me, even when I didn't deserve it. And now I can never tell her I'm sorry. I can never tell her I should have been more grateful. I can never tell her how much I need her in my life. Yeah, shake your head. Shake your head. You know, because that is what you took from me. And there's nothing this court can do that would provide justice in my eyes. So all I ask is that you rot, and you rot slow.
Wow. I think that sums it up really nicely for him. Wow. Whew.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Thank you for the opportunity that you're providing both to myself and to the rest of the families and acquaintances of the folks associated with this horrible case. My name is Michael Carlson, and I'm appearing here today both as an individual and a brother to one of the victims of November 21st. I'm here today as well as a plaintiff joining a criminal complaint against Mr. Brooks with a claim against him for the damage that he has brought not only to WAUKESHA, but to my family. And I'm also appearing as a posthumous spokesman for the victim, my sister Tamara Durand, who can't appear here today on her own behalf because Mr. Brooks killed her. In my personal aspect, I wish I could as easily forget about Mr. Brooks as he has seemingly forgotten about himself. Every day since November 21st has been framed by what he did in my own life and our family's life. It is the reality I wake to. It is the reality I head to work to. It is the reality I confront as I try to fall asleep. It's the reality I confront as I go about the things I do during the day, my attempts to work, attempts to manage a household and be present for my children, and maintaining any sort of notion of normalcy in our life. But all these actions are simply a pantomime, Mr. Brooks, to forget that my sister was so stupidly and so needlessly killed by you. Perhaps you can forget what you did, but I can't. November 21 looms as a ground zero day in the story of my life, as I know it does in the life of so many others. I appear today also as a plaintiff. Mr. Brooks, you asked the court to identify a plaintiff many times during the course of the trial. Here I am. I'm one of many. We, the people, have brought this case and these judgments against you, Mr. Brooks. They reflect our values as a people and are enacted through laws passed by our legislatures, enforced by our law enforcement, and administered through our courts. We, the people, find you guilty. A lifetime is a long time to think and to spout nonsense. And Mr. Brooks, I want you to take no comfort in your future here in this comic book cartoon world that you've created for yourself, involving the flags and barcodes and birth certificates. This is all nonsense, the stuff of teenage boys on the internet. That's not why you're here today. That's not why we're here today. We're here today and you are here today because you got in a car and instead of hitting the brakes, ran over children, elderly, and my sister Tamara. I don't want you to live in the comfort of that delusion as you live there in the court, as you live there in the prison, convincing yourself that you're the victim of something, of some crazy internet conspiracy. You're not, Mr. Brooks. You're guilty only of your own actions on that day, actions that you had an infinite number of times to stop. Any number of times you could have just hit those brakes, turned the other direction. As it stands, I'm a plaintiff, but I'm not a victim. The victim is Tamara Durand, my sister. She can't appear here on her own behalf because she's dead. She died when Mr. Brooks killed her on November 21st. Because Tamara cannot be here to speak, I will speak for her. Darrell Brooks, you took my life. I wish you hadn't. I had people to live for, people who needed me. My parents who are aging, my children who need their mother to help them make sense of their worlds, to cheer them on, to help them into their adulthood, to become friends with them. I have my grandson who relies on me, his grandmother, as much as I relied upon my own grandmother as I was growing up. I had people who needed me to cheer them on, to have me bring goodwill to the hospital bed where they were, or their families in the waiting room, who needed the comfort and prayers I brought to them in their moments of pain. I have friends who need to hear from me and families that need my early morning phone calls. I had places I wanted to see and things I needed to do. The only saving grace is I didn't know what hit me. And who would have ever guessed? Who could ever believe it? It's no surprise to anyone who knew me. After you hit me in that car, I got back up and kept dancing. I hardly skipped a beat. I didn't know you, Mr. Brooks. If the picture were reversed, if you were the stranger in the street in pain, needing care or comfort, know that I would have helped you. I ran towards pain and I ran into danger in my life. All you had to do was ask, and you might have danced along with us. It was a parade, after all. We both died in vain on November 21st, Mr. Brooks. I died to life, and you now die to the world. We leave lives behind, family behind, children behind us. We both leave dreams, we leave choices, we leave successes, we leave failures behind us. I died to mine in an instant, you died to yours over countless days. May the God I'm with grant you the courage to confront what you've done and to remember your own name. It's the least you might do for all these that you've left behind us who can never forget. Mr. Brooks, I'd also like to acknowledge that over these last couple months, I've sent you a couple letters in prison urging you to stand up, to be a man, to grow up, to accept accountability for what you've done. I also used those letters to share with you the love of the God that I believe in and that I know my sister Tamara believed in. I use those letters to share with you especially the story of the final act of Christ on the cross, where he is hanging between two murderers. And he turns to the one and he gives them forgiveness. I urge you to remember, Mr. Brooks, that there were two murderers on that day. One who mocked the holy living in God, and one who accepted accountability for who he was. Your Honor, I urge you to provide Mr. Brooks a lifetime in prison to please contemplate that story and to remember his name and to contemplate which side of Christ he wishes to hang on. Thank you.
I think we all get what he was saying, that he was the other guy. But Daryl really thinks, ugh.
Thank you, sir.
The family of victim A is going to speak next. They do have some minors with them, so I'd just like to give the camera a second to adjust for that. And also, one of the minors does wish to make a statement and is somewhat vertically challenged. I'm wondering if she should stand over so that you may see her, or
sure. The microphone can be taken out. Before I have them come up, I believe Mr. Brooks was attempting to get the court's attention, so let me address him quickly.
I wanted the order of the court, if I may, really quick, pertaining to the last speaker. I have an issue with, if it pleases the court, we can address it later, or if you want to address it now.
Mr. Brooks, these are sentencing remarks. I'm not going to interrupt those sentencing remarks to have you address him individually.
No, I'm not talking about addressing him individually.
Mr. Brooks, we're going to continue. I'm not sure what you could possibly bring to the court's attention about a speaker who's already made a statement.
A very valid issue that I can bring to the
You can
court.
put it in writing, sir, while you're sitting there, and if it's something I need to address, I will. But I'm not going to disrupt what's happening right now to address that. You need to put it in writing. All right, go ahead, Ms.
So put it in writing that
Mr. Brooks, please put it in writing.
that's
If you
the
need some
same,
paper,
that's the
then
same person you had that worked with the father of, right?
go ahead, Ms. Dunn.
Yeah, it's meaningless, Daryl.
No.
He thinks because she knew somebody who was a relative of a victim that is meaningful in any way, Daryl. In any way at all.
Like I said,
The
the same
record speaks
person.
for itself. All of those issues were previously put on the record. There's no need for you to make any
That is him
commentary
though,
about
right?
it.
You did work with his father though, right?
Mr. Brooks, stop. If you interrupt me again, you're gonna risk going into the other courtroom. I'm not gonna have
So
you
you're gonna hold me in
degrade
contempt?
the integrity
Yes.
of these proceedings.
I'm not
and the
attempting to
solemnity
cause
of
a
what's going on
controversy. I
right
just
now.
wanted to know
By
that.
once again
Yes, you are
trying to
trying to
derail what's happening and
And
take
you
the
always
focus
talk
off of.
about somebody trying to derail something as if that was the plan, like somebody coming
Mr.
here to
Brooks, I'm
derail
advising
something.
you to be quiet or I will clear this courtroom, and under Illinois versus Allen, you will lose your right to be present while the remainder of these individuals give their statements.
Okay, well, come on with it.
Come on with it. Come on
Once
with
they
it.
start, I expect you to be
Come
quiet.
on with it, because
Come on
that's
with
what
it.
you've been waiting to do the whole time.
Piece of shit. Listen up and listen what she has to say.
All right.
God damn.
Sir, you're gonna have to be removed. I'm sorry. I can't tolerate that from anyone. Mr. Brooks, my admonishment to you is the next person's going to get up and they're going to start their statement. And if
Okay, yeah, but you
interrupt-
made it seem like I'm trying to purposely interrupt that,
Mr. Brooks,
Yes, you are.
and I don't think
I'm
that's
turning
fair to
them.
do that.
Please be quiet.
Okay, yeah, I still have the First Amendment right to be heard and
No,
to
you don't.
speak. I still have that right.
Mr. Brooks, this is a sentencing hearing.
I don't
The
care
trial
what it is. You're not
All
gonna
right.
continue.
He is arguing
You're
with
not-
me. He is now forfeited
You're not
his
gonna
right to be
continue-
present.
you're
Everyone
not
is to
gonna
clear the courtroom
continue.
while he's moved to the next courtroom, and I'll make the appropriate findings when I'm able to do that without
So can I get a
interruption.
finding of fact? Can I get a
I'm
legal
stepping
finding
off
of
the
fact?
bench.
Because I don't
There's
agree to
recess
a
while that
stopper.
happens.
He really thinks this is still the trial, doesn't he? He really thinks this is still the trial.
Today, it is frankly a blatant attempt by Mr. Brooks to be disruptive, to take the focus off of what I think is some very emotionally charged victim statements here today from those who have been involved with the Dancing Grannies and people who lost their lives on November 21 of 2021. I warned him a couple of times, even in my words, backtracked a little, told him I would have the state have the next victim make the statement, and if he then interrupted, I would have him removed. He wanted to debate with me. He interrupted me repeatedly, and at that point, there was also an outburst by a member of the gallery. I addressed that. And then I indicated the courtroom would be cleared. I think I owe it to the individual who was kicked out, because I've given Mr. Brooks this opportunity on many occasions. If that individual would like to come back into the courtroom and can do so respectfully without an outburst, they are invited back in by this court.
Wow.
Mr. Brooks, I will also advise you that you are welcome back into this courtroom if you can abide by the rules of decorum and civility. While you have a right to be present for this sentencing hearing, you do not have a right to interrupt the court, to disrupt the court, and to be defiant, which is how I would describe your very recent behavior. And that is why this court, under the authority in Illinois versus Allen, did remove you from the courtroom. I have the ability, of course, with the technology. He's able to hear, he's able to see. We are able to see him. He's muted right now. While I attempted to have him appear without being muted, he spoke over me. If he wants to come back in before it is his turn to speak to the court and present individuals who wish to speak on his behalf, he needs to simply ask the bailiff, and then, of course, abide by the rules of civility and decorum. It's, of course, a very emotional day for many people here, if not all. And I think even more today than any other day, respect needs to be what guides everyone in this courtroom, and not interrupting and not having outbursts, no matter how difficult the situation may get at times. So I've made the record. I will unmute, but if there is any interruption whatsoever, I'll have to mute him once again. So the unmute is off. And once again, I've confirmed that the technology is working, and all right, what do you need to do?
I got it. I think I might have got it.
I mean, we can move one of the cameras, but I mean, they were behind it.
I'm totally making a mess of this. I'll show you later.
He will be able to hear. He may not be able to see the individuals speaking. I would note the podium is behind him in any event, and I don't believe he's turned back at all during this hearing, and it's standard, really, protocol for an inmate to remain looking forward, so I don't see any issue with that. He will be able to hear. With that,
We will need to screen share for the next speakers, Your Honor. There's some photos that we'd like to display, just to give you a heads up on that.
I believe Madam Clerk will be able to do that for us. When we get that up and running, then the next person can come on up. Looks like it's working. All right, thank you, sir. As a reminder, if you would at least let me know your name if you want to, or son of victim so-and-so, that would be very helpful, as I am trying to take notes of everyone who is making a statement. No, you are not muted. I expect you to be quiet as the proceedings continue.
I was just asking, was I muted? I didn't know. You just said I was muted.
I'm sorry for the interruption, sir. Please continue, or please start.
My name is Marshall Sorensen, and I am son to a murdered mother, Virginia Sorensen. On a day that I was planning to put up a Christmas tree with my family, I received a call from my dad that would turn my whole family's world upside down. When I answered the phone, my dad told me something happened to your mother during the parade and she didn't make it. I said, "What do you mean she didn't make it?" My dad proceeded to tell me that she was killed. Of course, I didn't believe him at first, but when I hung up the phone, reality set in. As I wiped the tears from my eyes, I thought to myself how I was going to tell my two little girls, as they wait in the other room to put up the Christmas tree, that they will never see their grandma again.
Oh.
As a parent, one of the hardest things to endure is to see your family in pain. Witnessing my daughter's hearts get shattered into a million pieces in an instant that night, trying to understand what happened to their Grammy, is something I wish to this day I could make go away. I love my mom unconditionally, and so did my family. My mom would jump at the opportunities to spend time with my daughters. I was blessed with having that opportunity with my mom, but my girls were cheated out of that because of the acts of one evil person. Mr. Brooks, you had mentioned that you will never be able to get the chance to hold your grandchild. To that, I say good. Maybe then, while you're locked behind bars, you will experience a little bit of the pain that you inflicted on 6 families when you killed their loved ones during a Christmas parade. My family will never get the chance to hug my mom one last time and say goodbye because of your actions. You will never understand what you took from my family, and by your actions in court, you don't seem to care either. Nope. You murdered my mom, and for that reason, I'm asking the judge to sentence you to life in prison without parole. I continue to have a hard time understanding why such a loving person like my mom had her life ended in a tragic way. But I do have some peace knowing that she left this earth doing something she loved. I encourage people now, after a year, that if someone asks you how my mom died, Virginia Sorensen, that you respond with, "Let me tell you how she lived," because that is what made her so special to so many people. When I was a kid, most of my superheroes wore capes. As of today, myself and family, we have a new one, and she wears a robe. Thank you, Judge Darrow. Words cannot express my family's gratitude with the time and effort you put into this trial. I want to also thank Sue, Zach, Leslie, Detective Casey, Jen, Pepper, the witnesses, the jury, for the sacrifices they made so justice could be served. Lastly, I want to thank the city of WAUKESHA for their community of love and support they displayed towards our family during this time. Going forward, my family will refuse to live in fear because of the acts of one evil person. My family will continue to attend parades, and at this year's Waukesha Christmas Parade, we plan on walking with the dancing grannies.
Wow.
We will do this in remembrance of my mom and show that we are stronger together. I ask you today to please remember the picture shown on the screen during this year's Waukesha Christmas Parade. This picture was taken before a previous parade. My hope for you is that it reminds you of the true representation of what the Waukesha Christmas Parade stood for before this tragic event, which is the unconditional love between families while celebrating the spirit of Christmas. May angels watch over you and you remain strong. I would like now to bring up my daughter, Brooke, to say a couple words about her grandma. She held the banner with my mom at previous parades, as shown in the picture above.
Is he going to hold up the objection sign? Seriously?
Thank you for being here, young lady.
What is this image?
What would you like to tell me?
Hello, my name is Brooke Sorensen. I'm Virginia Sorensen's granddaughter. The things I miss about my grandma are me and my sister Mackenzie doing foot races around the driveway, and my grandma would do commentary and time us. She always cheered us on at all of our activities. I would DJ at dancing granny parties and carry the banner at parades with my grandpa while Grammy danced. When we would get on the school bus, she would say reading is the key to learning to be nice, kind, brave, and angels watch over you. After school, we would talk on the porch. Other times when we came over to our house, we would play games together, go to the playground, have drawing contests, dance parties, and work on granny routines. She would give us snacks when we watched some of our favorite movies like Polar Express and Coco. When we first found out that she was gone, I started to cry, and I would cry every night. I missed her so much, and still do today. Daryl Brooks, you took her from me, my sister, and my family. The things we will miss the most are not seeing her again, her smile, her laugh, being able to talk to her, and doing fun things with her. My sister and I pray every night for our Grammy and our family. Grammy, I'll see you in my dreams.
I'm being told Mr. Brooks would like to come back. Before I do that, sir, I need a pledge from you that you will abide by the rules of courtesy and decorum and you will not interrupt. Can you do that, sir?
I'm not going to interrupt.
All right, then I will give him that opportunity to come back. We'll clear the courtroom while we do that. Thank you. We'll take a brief recess. Zach may be coming in to look at it, but we'll keep going while that happens since we are able to see and hear that way through the monitors. So, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
It has worked periodically. I see that. I guess we're going to take a pause then as we look at that. Sorry. I didn't know it caused that disruption. Can the state put something up and I'll...
Over Daryl's mouth.
And that was like way earlier when we first came.
There's.
It's working. Okay, great. It's working. All right, my apologies, sir, for that interruption.
Judge, I bumped the power button.
All right, well, there's nothing on.
Yeah, we did that.
There's nothing on it at the moment.
Okay, yeah, as long as you got that, you should be fine.
Court, really quick.
No!
No, we're going to keep going, sir.
I just wanted to apologize for
So what?
Albert. That's all. It wasn't to
Shut up.
address
Appreciate that,
anything.
sir. Thank you.
Shut up.
Thank you. I really do.
Shut up.
All right, go ahead, sir.
My name is Sean Sorensen, Virginia Sorensen's oldest son. Without warning, on a joy-filled Sunday in November, our family and others were devastated by an unfathomable act of evil. My mother, Virginia Sorensen, Jenny, a loving and devoted grandmother to 6, mother to 3, sister to 3, and wife of 56 years to my father, and friend to countless others, was taken from us for no comprehensible reason. My mom didn't let her age of 79 slow her down, be it the dancing grannies, her horses, dogs, cats, chickens, travel, working as a medical records nurse, holiday get-togethers, the occasional brandy old-fashioned, and having sleepovers and movie parties with her grandchildren. She enjoyed the company of others and was always up for an adventure. She never tired of listening to her grandchildren's dreams and inspiring them to shoot for the stars. She was so proud of all 6 of them in this photo: Carter, Claire, Gabrielle, Savannah, Brooke, and Mackenzie. She was killed doing something she loved and enjoyed with the dancing grannies, and although we were denied the chance to be with her when she passed, we know she was surrounded by friends and the caring strangers who sought to save her life, so we find comfort that she did not die alone. She was a compassionate person. She was always telling us, "God bless you," or "Angels watch over you." She will be missed with an aching emptiness in all our hearts. Judge Doro, thank you for overseeing this trial. You define excellence in your profession, and we are so grateful you were assigned to this case. Thank you to the 12 jurors of this strong community who carefully and unbiasedly listened to the evidence and brought back 76 guilty verdicts. Thank you, Sue Opper, Leslie Basie, Zach Witshaw, and the entire Waukesha District Attorney's team for ensuring Mr. Brooks would not escape the consequences of his despicable actions. Thank you, Detective Tom Casey, and the many law enforcement officers of Waukesha and other jurisdictions who investigated, collected evidence, and testified to ensure Darrell Brooks will never be a free man. Detective Casey came to my dad's house in the early morning hours of November 22nd to deliver the heart-wrenching confirmation that my mother had passed, and he has greeted us every day in court since then. I want to thank the Victim Witness Program, Jen Dunn, her staff, and their best comfort dog, Pepper, for their kindness and constant comfort to all the families affected this past year. She and her office have been a rock for us to cling to when events have threatened to emotionally overwhelm us. I want to thank the Waukesha Women's Center for supporting Corey Runkle and Erica Patterson in their testimony against Mr. Brooks and his abuse, and the good that the center does for other abused women. I want to thank the first responders and medical personnel at the parade who rendered aid to the injured and attempted to save my mother's life that night, and a nurse that we met at the memorial one night by chance, Sarah, who held my mother's hand that night. But she was already dead. A severed spine, multiple skull fractures, pelvic fractures, and her Christmas hat wedged under the windshield wipers of the Ford SUV. There was no ambulance ride or hospital stay. She was gone in a split seconds after Mr. Brooks smashed into her, but she will live on forever in our hearts. Finally, I would like to thank the Waukesha community and thousands of others for their outpouring of love and prayers to the families and victims of this unspeakable tragedy. I have few words for Mr. Brooks. Just saying that name brings anger and hatred into my heart, and I want to move forward after this sentencing with the happy memories I hold of my mother. I sat silently almost every day in this courtroom, bit my tongue, restrained myself from jumping over this divide to administer my thoughts of justice. As Mr. Brooks droned on about where the plaintiff was in this case, who the plaintiff was in this case. You've already heard, there are many plaintiffs here. I'm here, right now. I've been here all along. And now he gets to hear from me and will from many other plaintiffs before this day is over. He is simply a repulsive man who has shown zero remorse for his actions and depraved indifference to life. His fake tears in court were never for those harmed, but only for himself and the freedom he has lost. His narcissistic behavior, disgusting trial antics, and defiance to accept any accountability displays how truly unworthy he is of anyone's forgiveness. While we lost my mom instantly, I hope his 76 sentences pass in a slow, miserable, depressing existence as a reminder of the many lives he shattered. There are two others I hold culpable in my mother's murder. Dawn Woods, the mother who knew her son's felonious criminal history and penchant for violence, yet bailed him out of jail for $1,000 after he had assaulted Erica Patterson by running her over with Miss Woods' Ford Escape. She continued to allow him to drive it and enabled his violence and murders that Sunday afternoon. The other is John Chisholm, the Milwaukee County District Attorney, whose misguided and ill-conceived bail reform policies led a violent, multi-convicted felon back into our community and onto our streets while already out on bail from a previous violent felony. Mr. Chisholm disregarded his duty to keep the people of this community and state safe from repeat criminal offenders and allowed a career criminal to snuff out 6 innocent lives.
Wow.
He is a coward who hides from the accountability for his office's negligence. If he had a tiny, single sliver of integrity, he would resign.
Ooh.
Not once has Mr. Chisholm said 3 simple words to these victims and families. I am sorry. At least Miss Woods in her many media interviews has the humanity and understanding to say those words to the families affected. 6 families have been bound together forever in grief. 6 families have lost loved ones who are cherished and can never be replaced, but forever remembered with love. 6 names I will now never forget. Jane, Jackson, Bill, Tammy, Lee, and Ginny. As my mom was fond of saying, angels watch over us. And I know now there are 6 more watching over us. Judge Doro, my request is simple. Maximum terms of imprisonment, every single charge, life without parole for all 6 counts of intentional homicide. Thank you and all who played a role in bringing justice to the families in this community.
It's hard to hear the truth, isn't it, Daryl? These are getting easier to listen to.
I'm David Sorensen, Virginia Sorensen's husband of 56 years, and I'm wearing this Dancing Granny sweatshirt in her memory. A few thank yous, first of all. Thank you, Judge Doro. You earned...
Before he speaks, a lot of people ask me some of the worst things I've seen, and I hate it when I get asked that question because nobody wants to know these things. Nobody wants to see them. One of the worst things that I've ever seen was not about the patient. The patient had already passed. And the situation was pretty simple. There was a couple. They were an elderly couple. They had been married for well over 60 years. We were called by the family member who checks on them regularly. He said he normally checks on them in a couple of times a week, and he went to go check, and he found that a trash can was next to the door rather than where it belonged on the outside of the house. So he called. When we went inside, we found a deceased elderly lady sitting on a couch. And across from the couch was a hospital bed where her husband, who had had, I don't know, either a massive stroke or some kind of neurological problem, and was cared for by her and the family. And he was awake, but unable to get up or help or render aid. We all came in. We all surrounded the person. It was pretty quickly determined that this had occurred hours, probably the day before. And so most people cleared out. I, however, was charged to stay until the police and the coroner came. Family member, which was the son, was on his, was there. And when we went into the kitchen, we saw the 2 pill boxes, and the last time that the pills had been disturbed or taken was noon the day before. So we got a time frame for what may have happened. He said that she had been complaining of heartburn and had been taking antacids, which is a sign a lot of times of having a heart attack. So she may have been having a massive heart attack for hours or even a day before she passed away. Well, when everybody had cleared out, I turned around to the husband, who was looking at me with these longing eyes, obviously nonverbal, leaning as best he could over the hospital bed. And I said, and I informed him of the situation, that there was nothing we could do and that she had indeed passed away. And I used a little bit stronger words just to make sure there was no misunderstanding. The tears. Welled up in his eyes. There was really nothing more I could do. We got the family hooked with some social services to possibly move him to a facility that could take care of him. I helped clean him up, because obviously he doesn't clean himself. Help him out of the bed into a wheelchair so he could sit up. He'd been in the bed across from his deceased wife for the past at least 12 hours, if not longer. That was one of the hardest things I've ever seen. And this is what I think I'm going to hear right here. So this might be the last one we look at.
Your angel wings in this trial. Thank you to the jurors and those who testified who had to experience the horror of November 21st of last year all over again. Thank you, District Attorney Sue Upper, Leslie, Zach, and her excellent team. Thank you to Tom Casey, WAUKESHA Law Enforcement, first responders both on and off duty at the parade, medical personnel at the parade, and the area hospitals that cared for the injured. Thank you, Jan Dunn, and your caring team in the Victim Witness Office, especially my new furry friend, Pepper. Here's a thank you that nobody knows about. Thank you to J.J. Watt. He's a professional football player for the Arizona Cardinals, who gave this community money for funerals for the victims, 6 family funerals. Finally, thank you to the kind and compassionate people of Waukesha County, state of Wisconsin, and others from around the country and the world who have helped the victims of the Waukesha Christmas Parade find comfort, shared in their loss and sorrow, prayed for the injured, and offered words of caring so that we may heal both physically and mentally. Although I have very specific thoughts on how I and the parade families would want revenge on the convicted for what he did, I hand over his fate now to God. So I will let God determine the revenge I ask for, be it a week, a month, a year, a lifetime. I think it's fair to say the convicted is an evil animal, and I hope that God's wrath falls upon him. It actually started before the trial did, because he took away his own God-given name. He didn't want to be known by his name. I refuse to accept him as a person that deserves compassion or mercy. I too regret Wisconsin does not have the death penalty, because if someone ever deserved it, the convicted most certainly does. Life in prison is too kind. That Bible on your table will not do you any good for where you will end up. I have struggled this past year with Jenny's loss. It was to be her last parade. She was going to retire.
Oh.
I will continue to struggle with the loss. I am lucky to have family to care for me and wrap me in love so that I can start to glue together the shattered life I now have. I know Jenny probably saved our two granddaughters, who sit behind me, their lives by carrying the banner that day in their place, and I thank God for that. The life that Jenny and I built over 56 years of marriage was forever altered nearly a year ago. I will carry on in this new life with help from my family and friends. The life I was once able to share with Jenny is gone, but it has strengthened my family's closeness and in a way made us stronger for the great challenges we have ahead of us. I feel sorry she will not be able to hold a great-grandchild or see all of her grandchildren be successful in life, but I pray to her and know she is watching over us. My Christian faith and church have helped me cope with my sadness and find hope and love over hate. My friends have lifted me up in their prayers. My family carries my burden with me. My dogs at home give me a small measure of comfort when I am in need. Angels will watch over all of us and give us strength. Now I want you to use your imagination a little bit. When it thunders, I imagine that Jackson is blasting a home run over the fence. When there is a rainbow, I will imagine the dancing grannies, Jenny, Tammy, Lee, and Bill, with them dancing along its lines. When there's a ray of sunshine poking through the clouds, I will imagine it is Jane smiling down on us. When it snows like it did this morning, I will imagine God's love giving us a blanket and comfort. When I see a blue light, I see this community's commitment to help heal and support each other. Judge, you have witnessed the same evil I have. You have endured a very emotional and draining trial as I have. I ask for the full punishment within your power. I ask you to send this evil animal to life in prison with no chance for parole for the callous murder of my wife and 5 others and injuring 61 others. He should never have the opportunity to hurt another person and has forfeited his right to be a free man ever again by his violent actions against innocent lives, both young and old. You are a very evil, evil animal. Amen.
Okay. I think I need a break. I don't know how anybody could hear something like that from somebody like that. who spent a whole lifetime with someone, those beautiful pictures, and had not tear up. I mean, but there you go. All right, I know everybody's suffering through these. I'm hoping to get them done soon so we can move on to something. I'm looking at the Sarah Boone stuff. She's another wackadoodle-doo. Hide and seek? Hide and seek? Really? That's your story? Ugh. Let me know what you think. Till next time, we'll try to get through the rest of these.